Hey, this is Sarah Natelli, and you're watching CMS TV.
It is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and you know this guy over here. If you don't, you're just not a metal fan, and you might as well just hit escape and go to some other podcast, because this is about metal, and there's nobody more metal than this guy. He's a Grammy Award winner. He's the busiest guy, or one of the busiest guys in all of heavy metal right now, with, I think, about 35 bands going at the same time. He is the one, the only, Mr. David Ellefson. David, how are you, man?
I am great. How are you doing there, Chris?
I'm awesome, dude. It's awesome to talk to you. It's this is the weirdest pairing, dude. You and Jeff, because forever. Well, I'll tell you why. Okay. Because forever and a day, I have said that Jeff Scott Soto is the hardest working guy in metal.
Right.
But then when I list the names, you're always number two. You're always right there next to Jeff. It's usually you, Jeff, Johnny Gioeli. Those are the three guys that are always doing projects. And here's two of you guys finding your way together, which is, is just fun, man. So I know we've talked about this before. I know we've had both you and Jeff on the show at the same time before, back when you guys were talking about putting this thing together. Right. So maybe let's start there, man. How do you guys end up paired together, and what made you two think that you could work well together?
The devil made us do it. That's number one. That's why it's a vacation in the underworld.
That's right.
And, I guess it is funny, Jeff. It is probably why it's so hard for us to ever do live shows and things, because we're both busy men. We musicians make music. I'm not one to take kindly to criticism, but you're so busy, you're doing this. It's like, yeah, you think I play music for a living. That's what I do. Right. Some of us are fortunate to have that one gig for a long time, forever. Sometimes they're not forever. Jeff and I even talked about that. He's kind of had, of course, he's at Ingve, he was in Journey, he does TSO. So he's kind of always got the big gig things, even Sons of Apollo. Excuse me, but they don't occupy all of his time. And same with me. I have seasons when things are busy and seasons when they're not. And when they're not, even yesterday I picked up my guitar and was playing along to a Coolio song and ended up writing one of my own. I saw Coolio on an old episode of SNL. I was like, that's a freaking cool song. Gangsters in Heaven or something. Or whatever.
Right, Gangster Paradise, yeah.
Yeah, Gangster Paradise. Like, that's a freaking cool tune, man. I was thinking about maybe that'd be a cool cover song one day. I don't know, who knows. But so it's just funny how when creativity comes, and it got me excited. I've been about a week off the road from the Kings of Thrash thing that we did. So I just kind of let my body rest and repair itself. And just out of nowhere, I picked the guitar up and there was a song, So I don't force these things. And I think probably when you and I talked with Jeff, that was when we put out Swords and Tequila, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what it was? So at that point, we'd already been working for a couple months. I think that was like April 2021. So we'd probably been working together for a good month, maybe 6 weeks on this Vacation in the Underworld album. And it was really moving along quick. And and that's why I just said, hey man, why don't we pop Swords and Tequila out? It's fun. It's a cover. We're still in the COVID quarantine at the time. And people are liking these collaborations. And Jeff and I never got together. This was never a COVID quarantine collaboration. You know, I did a few of those, you know, with some people, just one-offs, and that's what they were intended to be. Let's do one song, we'll shoot a little playthrough video in our freaking studios or bedrooms or whatever, and we'll fire them off. That was not what this was. This was always intended to become a full-length record, you know, exactly what it is. So, you know, Torch and Tequila was kind of tipping our hand a little bit, like, yeah, we're doing this, and people, they friggin' loved it, you know. So I think that gave us confidence publicly to just kind of confirm what we knew was happening behind the scenes personally, that we were onto something kind of cool here.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, obviously, man, between the time you recorded this and the time you released this, a lot of craziness in your world, which we're not going to dig into. I think that's been pretty well dealt with. But I know at one point you had told me that you were thinking that you might shut it all down. You might just be like, all right, I'm done, you know, because you were frustrated, and rightly so. What was it that brought you back to not only being active and releasing this record, but getting really active again with this and Dieth and Kings of Thrash and everything else?
You know, the phone rings, I answer it, I say yes. You know, and I've talked about this many times. You know, that's just been my marching orders, as dictated to me by my friend Al Petrelli. Just say yes, you know. So I've told that story many times, but it's true. You know, it's you know, look, I've been working on a lot of things. I was talking to some people just this morning, and they mentioned, you know, that there was this sort of a lot of people making records, doing things during the quarantine, and now we're starting to see those things coming out. And you know, look, me, as people I think have become accustomed, I had about 4 things going on
Right.
in the background. And I mean, look, I laid low for a little bit last summer, but you know, I kept working, you know, you know, I just, you know, like I said at the beginning of this, musicians make music. It's what we do, you know, and you meet, look, you hit speed bumps in your life, professionally, personally, whatever. Everybody has stuff, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, sometimes you go, oh, I don't know if I need me to do anymore. I mean, you know, when Megadeth ended in 2002, I remember talking to my friend Troy Lucetta from Tesla. He had just moved to Scottsdale. We became friends. We'd known each other loosely in passing, but we became good buddies. And, you know, he said to me when I was starting F5, he goes, man, he goes, I don't think you got it in you to start another band from scratch and take it all the way to the top. He goes, I just don't think you got it in you at our age. I mean, because he had done a bunch of stuff, you know, so he had a heart-to-heart about it, you know, and the reality. And I went back to the band room of the F5 guys and said, guys, listen, you know, I got to go to the big dance, go to the top of the mountain, see the ultimate view, and look what happened. Our band broke up. It's over. You know, I said, I think you guys need to be very realistic about what this is, you know, that you're, you know, even though I'm the famous guy in the room and people are paying attention, probably largely because I'm part of this, you got to be very realistic about, you know, the chances that this could ever go anywhere. And so what I think what that got me back in touch with was just playing music for fun, you know. And as I got to know Rudy Sarzo, he talked about that, and he's talked about it in his interviews, just getting the joy back in his playing after being in Ozzy and Whitesnake and these big gigs that he had. Just learning to just fall in love with playing again, you know, because the schedules, the sort of demands of the professional life, you know, they like any gig, any job, you know, it's kind of a vampire and it kind of suck the life out of you. So I think, you know, this last year for me was just about kind of falling in love with, you know, just doing what I do, not only making music, just talking to you, my other friends, media people, just kind of just being comfortable, just going, yeah, you know, worked on a record, this came out, going on a tour, this is what we're doing. So just kind of all of it, you know. And you were a good friend to me last year. And I publicly want to thank you. You know, you had my back. You were very, very kind to me, and I was kind of checking, you okay, dude? You all right? You know what I mean? So, you know, I appreciate that. And, you know, hey, this too shall pass. You know, it's that saying, you know, the tough times never last, but the tough people do, you know.
Right on.
You know, weather the storm, you move on.
Exactly, man. No, you're so right, man. And for you, like you said, you've obviously been to the highest of the highs. I mean, obviously, Megadeth. Your time in Megadeth is the time in Megadeth. It's the highest. Doing it now without all the, I'll call it pampering for lack of a better term, but without the, the really nice tour buses or the plane flights or the super high end rooms, just to where it's all about just the music and then grinding it out more or less, outside of the time that you're on stage. Do you like that time, or do you miss the big show, or do you like it more because there's not as much pressure on you as there was when you were? Because, when you're at the top, there's always that pressure. There's 400 record company guys that are in your ear telling you why you have to do the same thing again to match it or beat it.
Well, make no mistake, I travel very comfortable. I learned over the years, if I'm going to keep going, I'm going to be comfortable in my life, and I am. So I've been very blessed with that. I make sure I take care of myself and those around me. Like we just did the Kings of Thrash tour last week. It's like, look, we got a bus and a crew, and we got a real manager and a real agent. I mean, it's a real gig. We're going to go out and do it right. We're older guys now, and we've paid our dues in the trenches before, and it's fun for me and Jeff and Chris to go out as kind of the old guard and sort of relive, especially when we're at the Whiskey, man. I mean, dude, that was like 1986 fucking thrash metal punk rock all the way. I was standing, me and Chris Paul were looking out going, dude, it's the fucking Peace Sells tour all over again. I mean, people stage diving and moshing and just fucking going nuts. People said, he goes, man, I haven't seen the Whiskey like that in maybe ever. You know what I mean? Right. Like, that's one of the best shows to hit the Whiskey in a long, long time. And we could just stand there and just go, this is what it was. This is what it will always be when we play these songs together. And so, to get that, that's the payoff. Again, the fact that you can get on a bus or go back to a nice hotel, that those are the comforts that are, at our age, we've paid the dues. We can afford to, to have those nicer things in life. But, that's the payoff, is to stand there, and bring up a couple of young bucks like Fred on drums and Chaz singing, to, kind of introduce these guys. Because Chaz has played in a Megadeth tribute band, so he kind of knows it a little bit, but to stand up there, real guys playing the real songs the right way, with all of the scrutiny and attention on it, and to step up and deliver. I mean, that was a crowning moment for them and a proud moment for us to have these dudes up there. Like Jeff says, it's kind of like Ozzy discovering Randy Rhoads. You know what I mean? When you get young talent that's like, man, these guys, they're doing it. They've done the work. They've got the abilities to do it, and to usher in some new guys that that they have the heart for it. They get the passion for it. And that's the thing, man, when the passion's gone, just fucking go home, man. Right. So I think all these things, Chris, it's like, if the passion's there, same with me and Jeff and everything and Lucid, it's like, when the passion's there and you're excited, fuck, that's what drives the whole thing, man. It's not the other shit can just be a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. The expectations, somebody trying to take someone else solo because, let's take them solo, we can make more money. I mean, that's the Rockstar movie with Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston, right? He's going solo, it's like, oh God. So, so I think we've already been through all that shit. So I think there's a part of us now at this age and at this point in our lives where it's like, fact that people want to show up and still hear us play and play our songs, and let's face it, our songs are going to outlive us, so the fact that we're the ones who still get to go up and play them, man, win all the way. Beautiful. Amen.
Does the success that you had with the Kings of Thrash, the little short run, does that spark? I know I saw somewhere that you're going to record an original song, or at least I think I read that, and I'm assuming then that something was sparked there where you feel really good about the energy to do that with those guys again, no?
100%. I mean, look, as soon as we put it up, I mean, people were like, oh my God, bring it to Cleveland, bring it to London, bring it to Chile, bring it to Japan, so right there, that was a telltale. You can kind of tell, kind of get a temperature on stuff. And, that's why we just did these 4 shows. Just a little circle out here in the West. Let's just fire it off. where we can kind of manage it and you know, let's see how it goes. And I mean, every show built to a bigger crescendo. So by the time we ended, it was like sold out and people were fucking rocking, and it felt like the old days, as it should. You know, that's you know, you go to most shows now, everything's so corporate that it's like, you know, some chick gets up on her boyfriend's shoulders and, you know, God forbid she flash her shirt, you know, but even if she gets up on her freaking boyfriend's shoulder, they're already flashlighting her. Get down, we can't have
right.
you know, because there's freaking wires and all this shit. And it's just like, are you kidding me? It's like, you know, that's why, again, it was fun to just play those gigs this last week, because it was the real heart and soul and spirit of what that music was, where it started. Right. You know, it was this moment where punks and metalheads, it was these, you know, allied forces together, and just all that went with it. And it was just great to experience it again, man. You know, and to see that there's a younger generation coming up that don't give a fuck about any of the other bullshit, and they don't care. They just want to fucking thrash and rock, and it's see that life moving past all that, you know. And it's like that spirit we grew up with is still alive and well, and being reincarnated now with the next generation.
Do you think it's solely about the music, or do you think a lot of it is also the explosion of I can finally get out again?
Certainly, that's probably some of it. And look, you see how people dress, man. I mean, shit, even, you know, on Rat Pack, they even did it in our Ellefson Soto record, putting, you know, not only guitar picks, but jean jacket patches, and you know what I mean? Right. It's all, dude, it's a dress code, man. It's like, you know, when you go into the club, you know, people showing up in their fucking denim vests with their Merciful Fate and Venom and, you know, Killing Is My Business patches on, and, you know, and it's just cool. I mean, sometimes that's people just wanting to kind of relive an era they didn't get to grow up in. But man, you can tell a person's heart when you see that, you know. If you're dressing in kind of groovy gear and bell bottoms and you're like a 70s fan, or if you're dressing in, you know, skinny jeans and high tops and bullet belts and you want to go fucking, you know, play thrash metal, it's like, you know, you can kind of get a read on your audience, you know. So it was just, you know, it's great to see that. And especially, you know, as we start new things, you know, Jeff and I did a tour over in Italy back in September, and it was this one moment where we had some time we could do it together. And it came together quickly. We're playing these, you know, these cool venues over in Italy. You know, the Italians are a spirited people anyway. They freaking love this kind of music. They don't get a lot of this stuff, like especially over in Turin. You know, I remember playing Turin with Metallica back in like '93 when we did these dates over there with them. But you know, that's not a city. It's kind of like Tucson. You know, they don't get every tour or, you know, Bakersfield, California. They don't get every show that comes through, you know. So the fact that we drove there and fired off a gig for them, man, they were stoked. They were appreciative. So, you know, to me, the size of the venue and all that really is, you know, and I can probably say it because I've gotten to play all the big places. So I've experienced it, and now I can compare it, and it's, you know, look, standing on big stages with the big four, fucking awesome. Not gonna lie, but you know, to play to a few hundred people in Turin, Italy, just as awesome. You know what I mean? Especially when we're playing brand new songs. There are songs, and introducing these people to new music they haven't even heard because the record wasn't even out yet. Right. And the fact that by the end of the night, man, they're into it, they're digging it, they're having a great time, and you know, to me, that's what they pay us to do, man. That's what our job is.
Is the one-on-one individual energy from a smaller crowd as potent as you know, a Wacken festival where it's 100,000 people, but it's just a big roar of noise and you really don't have any connection to it?
You know, they all have their place, and they're all awesome. You know, to walk out on those big decks, and you know, it's almost like an oil painting. There's so many people, you know, 100,000 people, you know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't even look real, you know what I mean? You can almost see the curvature of the earth at the back of the frickin', you know, back of the stadium, or the, you know, the field of people, you know, those are fantastic, of course. And yet at the same time, again, you know, to play, you you know, it's what we did last week, firing off at Brick by Brick, a cool little rock club in San Diego by the beach, and people just losing their minds going, oh my God, I can't believe we're getting to experience these songs that we never thought we'd hear again. And oh my God, there they are. Those are the real guys right there,
Right.
Jeff, you know, Chris, oh my God. And to just see that, you know, is to know you're delivering to them a kind of once in a lifetime experience, you know, that's something they're going to take to the grave with them. That experience right there to that fan meant everything. And it only cost them $30. It didn't cost them $300. You know, right. they could still afford a shirt, a beer, and a hamburger, you know, and a pack of smokes, you know what I mean? Whatever they do, and
right.
or a vape, whatever. And they could come out and it didn't kill their bank account, and they got to take home a memory for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's what a cool job we have to be able to do that for people.
Amen, man. Well, dude, I swear we're going to pull this around to Vacation in the Underworld, the new release from Ellefson Soto. Why don't we do this, man? Why don't we take a quick break and give people a taste of the
Sure.
Ellefson Soto? Why don't we play Like a Bullet, man? There it is. And
there you go.
What can you tell me about this song other than it's awesome?
You know, thank you. You know, it's funny. It was one of Joe from Rat Pack. So Rat Pack's a single-owned record company, which is what I love about it. And Joe and I have been friends for years, and we've been threatening to try to work together. And finally, I said him this one. I go, dude, I think I got one. And
nice.
He hit me back. He goes, dude, I love this record. And this was one of his favorite songs. He goes, dude, Like a Bullet is the shit. And so we did a video for it. It's one of the singles. So you know, it's just kind of a cool riff with a great melody, and it's like one of these empowering anthems to like stand up and be bigger than the problem around you.
Amen. Well, let's check it out right now. It is Ellefson Soto. It's Like a Bullet right here on CHRIS Akin Presents. Like a Bullet, that is brand new material from Ellefson Soto. The album is Vacation in the Underworld. Go and buy it, and I do mean buy it. Don't just stream it. I'm sure they'd like the streams, but they'd rather the sales. So go and buy this one, please. And while you're out buying it, you can read on the album artwork that you guys, David, worked with Chris Collier, who's working with tons and tons of people these days and putting out great material all over the place. What was it that led you and Jeff to decide to work with him?
Well, actually, Rat Pack had suggested him because when we submitted the tracks, they were, I think, in his mind, kind of rough mixes, which was fine. And so he said, I'd like Chris to do it. His ears are great. And so it was great to meet him. I certainly know of him. He's worked with a lot of my friends, Korn, all kinds of different people.
Sure.
And so it was fun. He's just over in Las Vegas, which is not far from me. So we'd spend a lot of time, a lot of late nights as he was doing mixes, you know, kind of sending stuff back and forth, tweaking on little things. And you know, it was fun because, you know, sometimes the reason you bring in an outside mixer rather than the person who engineered or maybe even produced the record is to have this sort of discerning outside ear. And he was just that, as well as his talents actually, you know, mixing. And what was fun was he and I, as we were putting together the track listing, we're going, okay, we got these, we got CD, vinyl, then the digital where we'll kind of put everything up. How do we lay the record out? And for me, I wanted Vacation in the Underworld to be the opening track. To me, it's as a title track, it lays right there. And then, you know, working through, you know, like a bullet sharpen the sword, the reason, the STN and all this stuff, kind of trying to get because when you're laying out the record, you know, you want it to be this journey, because this is very much an album project. It's not a singles record, you know. It's very much a listening process. So it was fun to work with Chris putting the running order together, and deciding. I think it was probably just as hard to kind of go which ones wouldn't go on the album. You know,
Right.
they were like, they're great, but I just can't see writing on the wall going right after the revolution. Like, where are we going to put it? Well, we're going to have to move that to digital, you know? Yeah, Chris, is glad you brought him up, because he was truly a vital component of getting the sound, and again, the running order, and kind of putting it together as a full listening experience.
Sure. Do you like, for yourself? Yeah, I mean, you're somebody that's worked with, you know, everybody really, you know, everybody of the famous producers and mixers and, you know, whatnot. Do you like bringing in new guys that have created sounds that don't match? Like Collier's, the reason I brought him up was his body of work doesn't sonically match what you do, which could go one of two ways. It could go as,
I know,
well, that's a challenge, or that could be a mess, you know.
Yeah.
and it worked, but
no, you're right. It's funny. I'm reading the Steve Lukather book right now, right? His memoir. I just savored every word of the Eddie Van Halen, the Eruption book that Chris Gill and Brad Tolinski wrote. I didn't want it to end, and I finally had to let it end. And so I've been also at the same time reading the Steve Lukather book, and I love Steve and his story. And he talks about a Toto record that they made. They hired the engineer who worked under Roy Thomas Baker, and Roy, of course, did Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, Journey, The Cars, these huge records. So they hired his engineer. And it went that way. They got a record that did not sound good. It was pretty much a dud. It had no single, you know, it didn't go that way. So you're right. You can get that experience, you know, with Chris. You know, once he sent a mix over, it was like, okay, I see where it is. And again, we tightened a couple things up, and I had a few, you know, kind of points about it. I said, one, just always make it sound like it's me playing bass, you know, you know, I don't have an anonymous tone. You know, you can kind of tell my personality through the playing.
Sure.
And one of the things I loved about what he did is he placed, because our guitars are big. I mean, Andy is a ferocious, I mean, the guy's a boxer, man. So I mean, he plays guitar like he freaking lives. He's in your face. He's fucking he's ferocious, you know. And so to get Jeff, as you know, as big as, so we got big bass, big guitars, big vocal, right? All right, you got to make room for this stuff. And Chris found a place where Jeff's vocal just came right out and just spoke right to me, you know. And I was like, man, I'm not even going to ask how you did that, but thank you for doing that, because he got the guitars placed right so that there's a nice space down the middle for Jeff to come right out and sing. And I said, you know, a record like this, especially with both of our names on it, obviously you need to hear that it's us. And it's kind of unusual that it would be a bass player and a singer. Usually it's like a guitar player and a singer or something like that. So, but I think Chris found a really nice place for everything. And you know, the drum sound is phenomenal. And you know, that's how you can tell cheap records is in the drum tone. You know, and our drum tone's great. It's, as much as we had to record it separately, it's you know, the time and the efforts, which in another day and time would equal money in the studio, is definitely there. So I mean, it's definitely a money record for sure.
Sure. You know, you mentioned the drumming, and it's Fred Akin that's playing the drums, right?
Actually, right? This is Paulo. Fred plays in Kings of Thrash, and Bullet Boys as well. But Paulo Caridi, who Andy brought in from Italy, and he's phenomenal. I mean, my first playing with Paulo, I did a bass story show in Milan, and I called Andy. He put the band together for me, And just to kind of warm up at sound check, I said, let's play Wrathchild by Iron Maiden. Paulo counted, and Paulo doesn't speak, he speaks better English now, but back then he could barely speak any English, so I'd have to communicate through Andy to Paulo.
Right.
And he counted off Wrathchild, and when he started playing it, I was like, is that fucking Clive Burr back there? I mean, this guy fucking had the pocket. I was like, I want to use him for everything. Like, he's amazing, you know? So just a guy that it was effortless, just fell into the pocket and you know, understood, because what it is on that, and I'll speak of, you know, Clive Burr had obviously a very distinctive sound on those early Maiden records.
Of course.
Right? And there's a thing about how, I forget, is it like, I think it's like playing the 16th notes with one hand. It's not a two-handed disco.
Right.
It's like a right? So he knew how to fucking play it like that, because the spacing in between each hi-hat hit, each note, if you will, is going to have a different fucking intensity to it when you're playing it one hand versus kind of the two hand. Same like when you down pick, it's going to have a more ferocious sound than if you just kind of back and forth butterfly it, right? So,
right.
Anyway, long story about Paulo, but that's how we got the gig as the drummer. There you go.
Very good, man. Well, dude, since you have 500 other bands, let's talk about a couple of them real quick.
Sure.
You came out of nowhere with Dieth, which is just brutality unlimited. Probably the heaviest thing you've done since Temple of Brutality, I would think.
Yeah.
And then you recorded an album while you were running around the world. You just decided to hit Poland and let's record a record while I'm here. So talk a little bit about Dieth, and you know, how do you know these guys?
Sure. Okay. So actually, the name as we pronounce it is Dieth.
Oh, it's Dieth? Okay.
Yeah. It's like Dieth, like you know, think like Hamlet, Shakespeare, right?
Okay.
Right.
Dieth.
So that's Dieth, right?
Okay.
That's the excuse me, the name. So Christian from Dead by Wednesday had introduced me to Guilherme, the guitar player who was in Entombed AD.
Okay.
His singer Lars had passed from cancer fairly recently. He was just kind of like sort of going, oh my God, like my gig is over, my life as I knew it is over. And so he was kind of rebooting, writing some stuff. Mihal, the drummer, was also in Decapitated, phenomenal drummer. And so they sent me a song, and I played bass on it, and that's in the Hall of the Hanging Serpent. And that's, you know, we when he sent it back mixed, you know, Guilherme was just like, he goes, man, guys, this sounds really good. Maybe we should do more. I said, done. So we started sending some tracks, and I was over in Europe in April, and I called G-Man, as I call him, Guilherme, G-Man. I said, yo, G, let's, he said, if we're going to make a video, why don't I just fly over there to Poland? I said, I'm in Germany. Why don't I just fly over and we'll fucking make a video? He goes, done. So, dude, he put that whole video together, the director and the nightclub where we filmed it. And, you know, he's a fucking sharp guy, man. I mean, he's got really good instincts on this stuff. And for me as an American musician, I love working over there in Europe. In fact, I'm actually going over there at the end of November, going over to shoot some music videos. And I was just there back in September back in September for a couple of weeks. We finished recording the album with Christian Kohler up in actually just south of Frankfurt, where his studio is. So I tell you, it's great working over there, because nowhere in that sphere is any talk of like, well, what's the single? Where's the radio hit? All this kind of, and because those are the drivers that sell records here. It used to be MTV, not so much, obviously, but certainly, is there a single, radio? What's the video? So it's so great working with those guys, because first of all, lyrically, there's nothing this side of the Atlantic. I mean, it's everything over there. And as you hear, like with Behemoth, obviously Merciful Fate, there's there's religious and political things that are very real to them that they've experienced over there as Europeans that we know nothing about. We weren't even a country when that shit was going down, right? So these guys have a historical depth to them, and that comes through in the lyrics. It comes through in the fucking darkness and the heaviness of the music. And man, I'm just thrilled to be part of that because, we base it out of Gdańsk, Poland, which is a town up in the very north of Poland. And, so to just be working with guys that their fucking fabric of their being is just so deep into that culture, man. It's just, I love it. It's such a cool thing, man. I love it.
And when do you expect that we'll hear that music?
Napalm is saying June 2023.
Okay, so yep. a while still.
Well, it's a while, but again, we just finished the record. We're going to start mixing now.
Okay.
That's why we're getting all the, we got to shoot videos, we got photos, artwork. There's deadlines of this stuff, and most of this stuff we're trying to get done here through the end of this year, so that we can get it in the hands of Napalm, and then it's up for them. And them being they're a great label, obviously, especially for music. Their schedules, they look at stuff, 9 to 12 months out on their projections, so, it's as much as it seems like a long ways away. I mean, frick, we're texting and working on shit every day for that thing. So it's but it's fun, man. It's super cool. And, I love traveling over there. It's fun to just be in their realm and sort of take off my American hat. And, I tell people that all the time. It's like, man, if especially for us Americans, it's like, it'll do you good to travel outside of our country and understand that there's cultures and, these people, these places have been countries. We're only a couple hundred years old, we're like newbies, you know what I mean? So it's like, really see part of this culture and how the other half lives, man. I think it's cool, and that's one of the gifts I think of being a musician is traveling the world and being a part of that.
Oh, you're right, man. Well, let's go to your other band, the one that was going strong and got derailed by Drew's health thing. Of course, I'm talking about the Lucid. Where are we at with that? Other than we're probably both very happy that Drew's okay, but.
Yeah, number one. Yeah. Number one, that's for sure. Yeah, he's fine. It sucks for all of us, especially for him, because this was the poor guy he's been part of so many cool things when he was in Big Tango. Then he was working with Steven Chirot from Kick Tracy. They had a thing going. And then the Lucid just kind of very effortlessly and organically just kind of got its wings, and people really like the sound of it. And it just sucks that right as we're going to go do some shows and kind of prop it up and give it a look, he had his testicular cancer. Unfortunately, the surgery took care of it. He's good. Nothing spread. He's healthy and young man. So he's good to go. It seems like, for now, or, from now on, which is great. But we have an EP that we did, and I think we're going to pop that out before the end of the year. Okay. Our goal was to do it back in May when we had the shows, and then we were just kind of waiting for a little window, and it kind of looks like, sometime here before the end of the year will be the time to do it. And it's good. It's got some cool stuff, really cool stuff on it. So I'm actually looking forward to having it come out.
Are you thinking that you guys might be able to reconstitute what the plans were, and as far as getting out and playing a handful of shows and testing the waters with it, or is it kind of over?
No. I think so. I think all of these things live unless you decide to kill them off, and I try not to kill any of this shit off, I mean, I try to just keep it all going. Some of them are meant to be just for a season and for a reason, and other times things get legs and keep going, with the Lucid, it's, Mike now, of course, is super busy with Raven. They just did a new record. They're out working. So that's what a lot of these things are for most of the guys, when you get to our age, is everybody's got 4 other gigs and other things they're doing, so but yeah, we've been talking about doing some shows. I mean, nobody's busier. Probably the fourth guy you should add to the most busy list is Vin from Sponge, because I mean, Sponge is always working. I mean, those guys are always out, and just trying to even get a weekend or two with him it's hard because, you know, of course, Sponge is popular, you know, and they're working. So it's just always a matter of finding that little window where we can just grab a weekend or two and whack a couple shows in there, you know.
It's unbelievable the amount of guys that you're working with that are like all of you trying to say, well, if we can find one day in the next 6 months.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, like with me and Jeff, it's like I knew, dude, he was playing in Armenia, you know, with Sons of Apollo, right? He was in fucking Armenia. And that's when I went, wait, hold on. Just stay there. I'll fly over to Italy and then we'll do these shows. You know, so it's like we're never gonna make it happen here, so we'll do it over on that side of the world. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm up for a plate of pasta and hanging with Andy and let's go. You know, so we go to Italy. and so that's, you know, that's how this works. Because then Jeff came home and he got busy again with Beeler, and now he's going off into Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So I know it is. It's like it's like being a dispatcher with a fucking calendar looking at everybody's.
It's 4D chess, more or less, putting that schedule together.
Totally.
Nice. Well, dude, obviously, man, you're super busy with 400 projects, and you've got for now we will promote Vacation in the Underworld. It is Ellefson Soto. It is a fantastic record. I really do love it. And you know, you could, even if you weren't on it, you couldn't sell me wrong, because Soto's my favorite singer out there today. He's so talented, man.
He's so great. That's why Andy Martingelli is like, dude, just call Jeff. He's like the fucking best guy for this kind of music. I mean, he's the best in the business for this kind of power metal stuff. And I was like, yeah, right, you know. And I'm a fan of his, you know what I mean? So it's funny. There's a part of me that I was kind of like, God, I don't know. What if he says no? What if he doesn't want to work with us? Or, you know, but he's such a good dude, man.
Sure.
And like all of us, when you're making good music, the story just tells itself. You know?
Sure. And probably my personal favorite part of this record is the fact that it's metal, which Jeff has gotten away from for a while. You know, he's been doing Wet, and he's been doing his, you know, his solo stuff is obviously, you know, mellower or AOR rock, and even Sons, while it's metal, it's, you know, more Dream Theater-y. You know,
totally is. You know, he brought that up as we were driving around Italy with Andy, as he goes, man, I'm like the most metal singer because, you know, I didn't grow up with this stuff. Right? I mean, he knew, of course, of know, Bruce Dickinson and, you know, Rob Halford and all this stuff. But, you know, and that's kind of where probably guys like you and me, we see him more in that. But in his mind, and I think a lot of the gigs, and like you say, his solo records, you know, they're not really metal records. And like you said, he goes, I didn't really grow up so much of a metal singer. I just got the calls to do metal gigs. And so I agree with you, man. I think it's great to get Jeff back. Fucking let's put him in the sweet spot where we all know him to be. And I'm proud that this is a record we could have done that with him.
Absolutely. As long as he doesn't get the call from Queen, maybe he'll stay with this for a while.
I think that would be his ultimate win. And you know what? It's like, God bless him, brother. Just give me some tickets so I can hang out once you see Queens.
No question. Well, dude, obviously, man, one more time, Vacation in the Underworld. It is Ellefson Soto. And where should we tell people to go, man, to get the record and to keep up with you and tour dates for your 33 bands and all that stuff?
Sure. Well, DavidEllefson.com has pretty much all of it there. Facebook, there's a David Ellefson page. Ellefson Soto has a page. Kings of Thrash, Dieth, all these things. And now that we've done the interview, we've kind of laid out the calendar for the next year of my life. So if anybody needs to have, they can reference back to this interview. So.
There we go. Well, dude, let's finish this one up by playing the title track, the video for the title track, Vacation in the Underworld. Tell me a little bit about the video.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The song. So my friend Steve Conley, who I was in F5 with, is now in Flotsam and Jetsam. He actually came to me with this music and asked me to play bass on it, which is funny. That's how F5 formed. He came to me with a song because he wanted to audition for Rob Halford at the time. Was looking for a new guitar player. I played on a track and we formed a band, F5.
Right.
So he sends me a song, 20 years later, and I go, dude, can I have Jeff Scott Soto sing on that? Because I think he'll knock this out of the park. And that basically completed in a way the circle of the stuff me and Jeff were working on. It's funny how that song, it kind of came in the door later, to be honest with you, but it sort of was like, man, that is the fucking sweet spot of this whole thing right there. So it created a nice artwork, a theme lyrically, a nice theme for it, and musically, I think is a great needle drop to hear it. And ironically, on this track, this is actually Ken Mary playing drums on this.
Okay.
Because when Steve sent the song over, it had the drums from Ken. I've known Ken on the P-Cells tour. When Alice Cooper took us out with the Constrictor tour for him, Ken was his drummer. So I've known Ken for years. He lives 15 minutes down the street from me.
Wow.
Yeah, funny how these friendships just hover around, you know.
Right. Very cool. Well, let's check it out right now. It is Vacation in the Underworld, Ellefson Soto and David Ellefson. Thanks for joining me, as always, on Chris Akin Presents.